The 14-kilometre central walk brings you into the heart of Beijing and is a great introduction to the city's waterways. It starts in the northwest corner of central Beijing and heads south into the heart of the city before looping back north. The walk follows the west bank of 4 connected lakes until it reaches the northern edge of the moat that runs around the Forbidden City. After completing a circle around the moat, the walk then returns along the east banks of the 4 long lakes back to the starting place. I arrived in the Jishui-Tan subway station at 8 o'clock sharp, found the alleyway behind the station that took me to the lake and climbed the small hill to Guo-Shaojing's Memorial Museum. It's a fitting start to the Waterways Walk series, as it was Guo-Shaojing, Kublai Khan's engineer, who was responsible for building the canals that brought water into the city. On a slightly foggy morning, I looked out over Shihai Lake, the first of 4 I was about to circumnavigate. Guo-Shaojing initially used the lakes as a countermeasure to hold water in the dry season and stop flooding in heavy rains. They now form a key part of central Beijing's landscape, popular both for tourists and local Beijingers alike. Setting off on the east bank of the quiet Shihai Lake, I walked to the end and then followed a small channel across the busy Deshangmen inner street, and then down a small side street that runs parallel to Hohai Lake. After about 200 metres, I was able to get back onto the water as I continued south. There's a marked change from one lake to the next as you begin to see rickshaws, cafes and small shops catering for outside visitors. Walking Hohai and Qinghai lakes before the shops open and the tourists flock in is a peaceful experience. If you're feeling energetic, you may also want to divert into the old hutongs that connect to the lake. Passing the Starbucks at the other end of Qianhai Lake denoted another change. After crossing Dianmen West Street and buying a 10 RMB entrance ticket, I entered the loud and fascinating world of Beihai Lake in the morning. Singers, dancers and exercisers all compete for space in the open walkways and pagodas that run along the lake. I've spent many hours in parks around Beijing enjoying the early morning activity, but this was an experience that topped them all. At the southern end, I exited the park and walked east along Wenjin Street to the corner of the Forbidden City. The walk south from here took me down Beichang Street to a point I could get back on the moat, where I followed it around the southern edge and into the palace entrance courtyard. If you have time, you can continue through the south gate and into Tiananmen Square, but I pushed on, making my way through the hordes of tour groups, crossing the square and back along the southern edge of the moat before turning north to start my return back to Jishui-Tan. After a packed lunch on a bench overlooking the Forbidden City, I made the 6-kilometre walk back in one stretch, this time along the eastern edge of the moat and lakes. It's a different but equally rewarding experience in the quiet of the afternoon, with plenty of distractions if you have the energy to explore. I was back on the subway by 3 p.m, well before the rush hour, and having enjoyed a good length walk with plenty of fascinating distractions along the way. Join me in the next part where I'll be walking from the Summer Palace down the western side of Beijing. This is DJ Clark on the Central Beijing Waterways for China Daily.